Carolina Panthers will be leaving for Munich, Germany to take on the New York Giants. They will not pack Jonathan Mingo into their suitcases. He has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Second trade of a wide receiver for the Panthers. Deontay Johnson went to the Baltimore Ravens last week. They moved up, I don't know, maybe 10 spots in the draft to get rid of Deontay Johnson. Vashti Hurt, CarolinaBlitz.com, joins us on the Adam Gold Show. Covers not only the Panthers, but every single team in the Triangle in North Carolina. You are the hardest working woman in show business. Thank you so much for the time. I know you said before the trade of Johnson, or maybe it was after, that you didn't get the sense that Johnson was an issue in the locker room. And I mean, I didn't hear anything about that either. But there's got to be a reason that they wanted him out and didn't really get anything in return other than to move up 10 spots in the draft, because that's really all that happened. What's your takeaway from that one before we get to the Mingo deal?
Yeah, I thought the Panthers were the clear loser in that trade, and maybe from what the actual players said and from what I see, being in the locker room 3-4 days out of the week, there wasn't a problem with the players in Deontay Johnson. Now, maybe Deontay Johnson was vocal about the losing that was occurring on the team, and a first-year coach, a first-year GM didn't want that type of vocal displeasure, being said out loud in the locker room to maybe potentially influence younger guys. But as far as people in the locker room, his teammates, they didn't have any problem with him. He was a hard worker, obviously the best receiver so far on that team, on the team before he was traded. So maybe it was just a thing where, he wasn't happy with the losing and maybe even some of the play calling, which is understandable.
Right.
But I'm guessing Canales didn't want to be questioned about that as he's trying to control a losing locker room.
I mean, it certainly could have waited to this week. There might have been more. I mean, they got more for Jonathan Mingo, far less accomplished. That could have something to do with the fact that, you traded him to Dallas, and they don't know what they're doing, and also that he has another year left of team control of that contract, so it's a low number, whereas Johnson is walking into free agency, so it's just a rental for Baltimore. Isn't that amazing that Jonathan Mingo could be so unimpressive as a player for a year and a half, and you get what ultimately could be a pretty high fourth-round pick?
Absolutely. I was shocked that was what Dallas was willing to give up, especially given where they are right now with their own failures so far this year. But apparently heading into the draft, when he was selected, they had him very high on their board, and they really liked him. So they still see potential. Obviously, they think that what was happening in Carolina and his lack of productivity is a result of nature and not nurture.
Right.
So they feel like they'll be able to have him come in and be a complementary piece to CeeDee Lamb, which is what fans in Dallas have been calling for. And I wouldn't be surprised if he thrived down there. Sometimes a change of scenery is good for everybody. Mingo has always been a hard worker. He just didn't catch on here. And so we'll see what happens in Dallas. But the Panthers obviously believe in Leggett and Coker, whose stock is now rising. And they like their young group of guys, and I see them maybe doing more in the offseason and through the draft to bring in other wide receiver pieces.
Vashti Hurt, Carolina Blitz, at Keep Blitzin on Twitter, is joining us here in the Adam Gold Show. I'm going to get to Bryce Young here, but it is interesting that emerging over the last few weeks, Xavier Leggett has been very good. I'm like, look, it was a great play for the interception. It's a ball that he's got to secure, but I mean, you can also credit whoever that was for the Saints just making an absolutely incredible defensive play. But Leggett has been good. Coker has been such an eye-opening surprise. He looks like a very, very good, let's say, a third receiver for this team. And JT Sanders looks like a pass-catching tight end that they haven't had since Greg Olsen, the best of Greg Olsen, because Olsen in the last couple of years, he just wasn't available enough because he was injured so often. So there are three good pieces for Bryce Young to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always liked Jatavion Sanders, even during training camp, because he offered that. You know, we heard about Ian Thomas and even Tommy Trimble. They're such good blocking tight ends.
Right.
Well, who cares about blocking tight ends? That's just not their only job. They need to have that threat in the pass game really opens up things for your quarterback and your offense. And so they haven't had that in recent years. Honestly, I think that Jatavion, just 9 games in, his production is more than what the Panthers have had since 2019 from a tight end, and that was Greg Olsen.
Yep.
So to have that threat, especially in the red zone, I think is great. And you know, they can do without a Mingo. And then they also have Devin Tompkins, who they brought, who's on the practice squad, who is familiar with Dave Canales in Tampa Bay. So there are guys that they'll probably elevate, and this is just a year for them to try to develop and go forward with that youth movement.
Vashti Hurt is joining us here. All right, we waited all this long. Let's get to Bryce. I mean, I laugh at Dave Canales not naming a starter. I can't imagine it's not going to be Bryce Young, so let's just assume it is. What did you make of the progress from the game against Denver to the game we just watched against New Orleans?
First, I didn't. I want to say I hated the fact that he had an opportunity to just name Bryce. I mean, he benched him on a Monday. You could have named him a starter on a Monday. The only reason why I feel like low key though he didn't do this is because maybe he's a piece that a tradable piece. Maybe he's somebody that might Dan Morgan maybe fielding some calls, and if the price is right, and it's going to have to be a high price, then he could be a guy that they potentially move if Canales does not believe in him. That's the only reason why I think they don't name him starter on Monday, is because they wanted the trade deadline to go by. But he's taken a step, and he might not verbally say that he's been inspired by the benching. I'm seeing more dog in him, and that's welcomed. To me, the big thing was there was a set him downs in the fourth quarter, and the Panthers had an opportunity to go up, and Canales called like 3 screens in a row, and the fans booed. And after that, Bryce went to him, and you could tell that they were having a conversation on the sideline. And I'm sure in that moment, the quarterback told the rookie coach or the first-year coach, yo, let's open it up some. Give me an opportunity to make plays to win this game. And that's growth, especially for a guy like Bryce, who seems like a company man, a tote the line man. I don't want to make too much noise. You know, the coach is going to do the best thing for the team. Well, maybe he wasn't. And in that moment, for Bryce to stand up and what we're assuming is, and Canales didn't quite confirm it, but he kind of confirmed it in his post-game press conference. For him to come out and have a conversation with him, we saw on that very next series, he had his first game-winning drive of his career, and they tried to extend the field by throwing the ball downfield. Got a third down pass to Leggett. Were the beneficiaries of a pass interference call. So I thought that there could be a turning point for Bryce Young as in his NFL career,
and maybe a turning point from Dave Canales. I have been saying for weeks now that it seems to me that Dave Canales wanted to prove that Bryce couldn't play as opposed to that he could. And because play calling tells you, and like that first drive against Denver, Bryce wasn't awesome. He didn't have to be. It was a lot of stuff on the ground, which it really should be for this team anyway, as well as Chuba Hubbard's played. But after that, it seemed like he was terrified to call a pass where Bryce Young might have to look down the field. Like everything was lateral, like or behind. I could not believe what I was watching. And then when the game was out of hand, that's when he started calling downfield passes again. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. But I've thought this for a while, and Dave Canales goes in and out of, I don't know what you're doing here with me, but it was good to see that Bryce got a chance to, get the ball down the field because I think he's good at it. I think the pass to Coker, I guess this is against Denver, the pass to Coker down the sideline was excellent. I think there's something there, but do you get the sense that Dave Canales has probably already moved on mentally from Bryce?
I don't, he could have moved on mentally from Bryce. I don't know if he has the luxury of moving on from Bryce because he is playing better. And also, you have a team, he's still the number 1 overall draft pick from just a year ago, and they gave up a lot to get him. So I feel like as a first-year coach who really doesn't have that much experience himself,
right,
he's learning on the job just like Bryce. Let's keep it a buck. I don't feel like it would be completely irresponsible for him to give up on a guy like him this soon. And I think that's where, and I know people don't want to, people aren't fans of David Tepper right now, but that's where right, your GM and your owner say, listen, we drafted this guy for a reason, and we brought you here to be the quote-unquote quarterback fixer, and you're going to have to play to Bryce's strengths, and this is what we heard all offseason, but you also cannot handcuff him. He threw a dot. That pass that was picked off by Xavier Legate, it was just a good play by that cornerback. That was a dot. He also threw a dot to David Moore that David Moore should have caught, and that would have been a touchdown. So Bryce had some very accurate deep throws, and at this point you really just want to see some type of progress, some type of promise that he can be even just a decent quarterback, because we haven't seen that yet. But Canales is really going to have to try to embrace that and not do things that he feels like, and this is the wording he said, he wanted to call plays that Bryce felt comfortable with. Mm-hmm. They're not playing for a playoff position. You might as well open it up and see what the guy has.
That's what I said. Make him uncomfortable. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Let him play. Let him learn. Vashti Hurt, I don't know if you're going to Munich or not, but if you do, have a safe flight. And either way, we'll talk to you down the road very soon. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks for having me, Adam.
You got it. Vashti Hurt, Carolina Blitz, at Keep Blitzing on Twitter.